The truth is that Parliament continue to be heavily involved in treason.
And I'm actually at a point now where I don't have a good answer for that anymore because just how corrupt everything is.
To override the Constitution, to usurp the people's rights is an act of treason.
And that's the problem. It's all there. We don't have the numbers of people doing it, and that's what needs to happen. There's so much corruption now.
That would suggest that we haven't even got any sort of lawful government in place.
Giving these truths of history, but we're living in a day and age where what you're telling us, we know it's true. We're living it right now. Is it any wonder we're in the shit that we're in now? Hey guys, Gavin here from Sovereign Empowerment. I'm joined once again by Damien. Topic today is going to be the Bill of Rights. And Damien is going to give some historical context to the Bill of Rights. I would suggest in a way that you've not perhaps heard of before. There's a lot of talk about the Bill of Rights, but there's a big but with that. And I'm going to leave it with Damien then to sort of fill in the gaps about the historical context and how the Bill of Rights came to be. I think you're going to be quite surprised by the story itself. So Damien, welcome back, my man.
You okay?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. I know you've been busy sort of getting all these facts of history and stuff together. You've got some more truth about the Bill of Rights, which I think will change folks' perspective about what that really is and if we really even want it in our legal system. So what do we got to say? What happened?
So I've just put a few slides together. It's basically just a few home truths about the document itself and how it was put together and the reasons why. There's some major issues, some stuff that's actually anti-constitutional. I know a lot of people look at the Bill of Rights as a constitutional document, but I think they're going to be a little bit defensive about this information. People who have got attachments to the Bill of Rights are obviously going to get a little bit triggered by this, but
yeah,
it is what it is. So
truth is truth, right?
So I've gone back to the 1297, the Bill of Rights, and 1215, and how they differ. The Bill of Rights 1689 is a statute, meaning it can be repealed or amended. Section 3 of this bill was removed, and what's even more interesting is that this section gives supremacy to the Great Charter. Section 3 reads, provided that no charter or grant or pardon granted before the 23rd day of October in the year of our Lord, 1689, which is obviously the old style date, shall be anyways impeached or invalidated by this act, but that the same shall be and remain of the same force and effect in law, and no other than as if this act had never been made. So consequently, it is sometimes mistakenly believed that the Bill of Rights cannot be amended. This is not the case. It is a fundamental principle of British constitutional law that no parliament can bind its successors and that any statute can be repealed. This doctrine was already established by the late 17th century, and that's the parliamentary website who suggested statutes being limited in a lot of ways. I would suggest that that is more or less spot on, even though the parliamentary website isn't really
not the best guide,
a good source. But yeah, well, it goes to show, doesn't it? Because Section 3 has obviously been removed. What is it? You can repeal some parts, but not other parts. It doesn't make sense. Documents like this, you need to take a few more steps to repeal it. The Bill of Rights 1689 contains no Article 39, no trial by jury. While masquerading as a constitutional document, it is important to understand that the Bill of Rights, through the actions of removing common law trial by jury, contravenes common law and diverts away from legitimate constitutional law. Magna Carta 1215, Law of the Land, Legum Terrae, constitutional law, common law, which is actually man's best interpretation of natural law. Common law trial by jury and jury independence is the only safeguard against tyranny. If common law trial by jury is not present, then the potential for a criminal government will always be a threat to people's individual rights. To subvert legitimate constitutional law, to override the Constitution, to usurp the people's rights is an act of treason. It is mind-blowing to think that people are ignoring real constitutional law in favour of using a treasonous document they believe protects individual rights. So it's a bit of people probably going to get a little bit triggered by that or a little bit upset because they're obviously using it and maybe having success using it. But my sentiments are that we shouldn't really be using this legal system or even using the Bill of Rights. What we should be using is constitutional law, real law, that the government is bound by. And I feel like we're not doing that. We're not at that point at the minute of doing that. Maybe because that knowledge isn't there of what it means or what it stands for. Bill of Rights 1689 not only usurped the Constitution, the people's rights and common law trial by jury, it also usurped the King, Queen's duties and obligations to the people through coronation oath, which enables them to exercise the right to refuse unlawful legislation coming from parliaments that aims to undermine the legitimate rule of law, which is constitutional law. That the pretended power of suspending the laws or the execution of laws by regal authority without consent of parliament is illegal. So that safety mechanism that we've got through royal assent, the king or queen, the holder of office, the office of sovereign, they have an obligation to the people to refuse royal assent to any legislation that breaches the Constitution or breaches people's individual rights or liberties. So that's been kind of, well, it has been taken away.
Yeah.
Because having the free choice just to say, well, that breaches the Constitution, I'm not assenting to it. But you need to answer to Parliament first before you do that. It needs to have the consent of Parliament when you're refusing that assent, which, when you think about it, it's meant to be a safety mechanism for the people. They swear an oath, the coronation, to protect those liberties. So if they're having to answer to Parliament, and Parliament basically can, you know how it goes, they say it's a formality. So I don't even think they have refused royal assent, to be fair. So the head of state is duty bound by their coronation oath to reject all legislation that conflicts with the customs and common law of the land. Is it any wonder that Parliament believes to be sovereign when these kind of sentiments dictate that the head of state has to obey Parliament and not the permanent common law constitution? So the truth is that Parliament continue to be heavily involved in treason. I think this is the crux of this whole conversation with the legal system, is that the people operating within the legal system, they're all committing treason.
Yeah, they're all corrupted.
Because
probably not all corrupted, but there's a lot of them corrupted.
They're not abiding to constitutional law.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. And, we can get into the whole Article 61, being invoked. That would suggest that we haven't even got any sort of lawful government in place. And it's not really government, it's just an administration.
We know that's true as well.
Yeah, it's true.
We're giving these truths of history, but we're living in a day and age where what you're telling us, we know it's true. We're living it right now.
What I struggle with when we talk about the Magna Carta and we talk about the facts that, Article 61 was invoked in 2001 for different reasons. It was more to do with EU law and integrating with the EU rather than it being about the government and the legal system not abiding by constitutional law, which that's what it should have been, really, because that's the causal factor. The Treaty of Nice was just a symptom of the issues that were going on. Just like in 1972, when Edward Heath committed treason, it was a symptom. What it is that constitutional law, not so much talking about the Magna Carta as a document, because that's just a reminder. The constitutional law that already existed. This is the thing. It's existed for hundreds of years before that. It's just that with what happened around that time, it was written down as a reminder how the head of state was bound by common law, by constitutional law. So that's interesting as well, because a lot of people seem to think that the Magna Carta like spawned common law, or that was the beginning of it. Well, no, it wasn't, because you can go back even further. You know, Saxon or late Saxon kings, Edward the Confessor, Alfred the Great. You can trace it right back. It was going on. It was even going on in Europe, common law, trial by jury, and all that kind of stuff. So it's easily proven, and the fact that it was invoked, Article 61 was invoked in 2001. That can be easily proven. And it's a problem to me that people ignore that and we just carry on operating within a legal system. Instead of really what we should be doing is holding them accounts under those circumstances, or under the Constitution as well, but under the fact that it was invoked in 2001. Who's going to refuse that? Who's going to say that that didn't mean anything, or that was completely false, or it didn't happen? Who's going to step up and say that? So why are we ignoring it? It clearly happened. It's mind-boggling to me. So moving on. The Bill of Rights 1689 put wealth restrictions on who could serve as jurors, a complete hijack of the Constitution and equal justice. Were you aware of that?
Never knew that.
Okay, so when we go on about in the Bill of Rights about juries and unqualified people, that's what it was. The provision is this, and whereas of late, partial, corrupt and unqualified persons returned and served on juries and trials, and particularly diverse jurors have been in trials for high treason, which were not freeholders, property owners. That's what it was. That's what freeholders were. So you can imagine at that time the amount of people who were poor, certainly weren't property owners. So you're kind of getting rid of a large proportion of the population that could serve legitimately on jurors. It was just based on wealth.
Yeah.
So all which are utterly and directly contrary to the known laws and statutes and freedom of this realm. Well, it's actually the opposite, because that whole provision is anti-constitutional, because you've taken away the right to serve on a jury.
Literally based on wealth, which is
awful. And that wasn't the end of it. That happened through the reign of future kings. It went on for a while.
Point is, like, you know, this chipping away, going back that far, is it any wonder we're in the shit that we're in now? It's just, you know, this has been enabled now because of what they started doing way back when. This is where it all started, isn't it?
The whole chipping away at the Constitution has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's just that it's been done in little tiny increments where people haven't really paid attention or known or been knowledgeable about it. You know, I mean, this document itself, the way people talk about it, that you don't understand. You know, that provision alone should nullify that whole document, because you're basically saying there's only a select few that can serve as jurors. So there's no equal justice in that. And if you want to get legislation through Parliament, or you want to get a certain verdict in a court, then what better? The rich and the people involved in government rubbing shoulders. So this provision clearly forbid common people to serve on juries. The estates knew that by placing wealth and property restrictions on juries, it would in turn remove a large percentage of the nation. It is the Bill of Rights that is anti-constitutional and in direct opposition of the known laws, customs and freedoms of this realm. It suppresses the people's sovereignty and obliterates common law trial by jury and the ability to annul government-made legislation.
It's actually nuts.
Yeah, well, I think people just bypass it because I don't think they understand the power of common law trial by jury and how it elevates the people above governments. the people become the legislature and become the judiciary through that trial by jury, because obviously you've got the ability to annul legislation. So you become the legislature because you're in what legislation goes through or what does. I think it's a bigger process. It's not a matter of annulling legislation once and then it gets removed. I think it has to go through that testing process, and it has to be quite a few cases until the system realizes that legislation is unlawful and it needs to be extracted from the statute book. I'm not sure. It's not anything I've read about or even looked into, but I'm sure if that annulment by jury and then regular, that's the next stage. But I'm not 100% sure on that. So moving on. Through the deceitful estates, all the pieces of the jigsaw were put in place to empower Parliament. The actions of putting jury qualifications in place, the kneecapping of the head of state's prerogative powers, royal assent, the usurpation of the coronation oath, the subversion from the common law constitution, the people's trial by jury independence and annulment by jury, and also private prosecution. All warrant the crime of treason and remove all the protections required to halt a potentially criminal government. Now, the position that we're in now, we haven't got that option.
Yep.
Governments are acting criminally, but what's our remedy?
We don't have one.
We haven't got one, but under the Constitution, under trial by jury, we've got remedy. And we've got remedy in the Constitution if government do go rogue in Article 61. Now, I don't see any of them provisions in the Bill of Rights.
Correct. And even if you try using the Bill of Rights in court these days, you won't even get very far with that either, even though it is statute and it's meant to be constitutional. So we've gone way past even this being a potentially treasonable document. You still can't use it in the courts anyway. So there literally is no remedy against what we're dealing with right now.
So moving on, a government, Parliament, the legislature cannot use statute to write themselves into constitutional power. So all this stuff about you can't do this without the consent of Parliament, you can't do that without the consent of Parliament, it's absolutely treasonous. The government was never for that purpose. It was more of an administration. It was just a system of support.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be deciding on what people can do and can't do and encroaching on people's freedom.
Yeah.
So it's actually an inversion of what it's actually meant to stand for, what people believe it stands for. It's an inversion. It's not constitutional in any way. It's actually anti-constitutional.
Yeah.
It doesn't protect people's liberties because
that's the absolute opposite.
Exactly. The one thing that does protect the people's liberties and individual rights been removed, and the ability to serve as a juror if you're a commoner was removed as well.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what the Bill of Rights aimed to do. So to me, that was purposely done. How the Bill of Rights was written was to shift power, not power or authority, the wrong words, because obviously it's an illegitimate system. But in a sense, it's removed the ability to dictate from the king or queen to Parliament. And the people are still here, not getting any sort of remedy or justice.
Yeah.
You know, so these were blatant acts of betrayal against the people only to serve the few self-interest of the state. Under these circumstances, the passing of future legislation would become a foregone conclusion. So we can see how it's just gone on. From this, you've slowly got into the whole political spectrum, you know, voting for representatives, the fake democracy in which it isn't. It is an adult suffrage. You know, democracy is trial by jury, basically. The people ruling themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so that whole meaning of democracy has been hijacked to confuse people, to make people think that democracy is voting.
Yeah. It's another form of tyranny, and that's been proven to rig the whole system. Even direct democracy, like they're trying to say now. Andrew Bridgen sort of pushing this direct democracy model. That don't work either. It's all susceptible. If you're voting, it can be rigged.
Well, anything to do with voting is basically collectivism.
Correct.
You haven't, your free will choice has been taken away because you basically have a majority vote dictating still. So again, it's not freedom.
Yeah.
It's still slavery. It's like what we discussed last time. If they ever did a referendum on, say, mandated vaccines, can you imagine if 51% voted for and 49% were deemed the minority and basically going to be forced to take a vaccine they don't want? So that free will choice has been taken away. So you're still a slave. You're still being dictated to. You know, it isn't democracy in any way. It's not individualism, it's collectivism. And that what Andrew Bridgham's going on about is just more of the same.
I agree.
It's just more voting. It's just more of the same fake democracy.
It's another system that's ripe for rigging, basically. It's like, I don't see the point of it unless you've got the checks and balance. It's, for me, like, since I've met you and talked about it, I don't, again, I'm not saying I know everything here, but at the moment, I'm not aware or cannot conceive of a model that works better for people than trial by jury.
No, I can't see anything. When I read Democracy Defined, that kind of triggered all of this, to be honest. Even though I was looking at the Magna Carta years ago, when David Robinson was big on it and doing all kinds of notices and stuff, I still didn't understand. I still didn't understand trial by jury and how powerful it was and how it elevated the people into that position above governments. So that safeguard is always there. Because if you look at it, look at the way bills are passed. You know, they start in the lower house, don't they? You know, to the upper house. That's the first check, really, where the upper house can basically send it back down and say, no, you know, it's not going any further or whatever. And then if they pass it, it goes to the head of state, which is another check. So if it goes to her and she's like, well, this is breaching fundamental principles of our constitution, I'm not giving it royal assent, then that's a check. Look, if that system has gone rogue, or it's potentially turning criminal, or it's trying to do something, that last check, which is the people, that's your safety net.
Yeah.
And who better than the people?
Yeah. Completely agree.
It's mandated vaccine, or it is suggesting, you know, doing something on the basis of safety or whatever it is trying to do, force us to do. Then when it hits trial by jury, if someone breaks that legislation or whatever, then it can be tested then, can't it? And the jury can annul it at that stage and continue to annul it if it's unlawful.
Yeah, completely agree.
Then within this system, this common law system, all them checks and balances and safety mechanisms, they're all there. It's just that we're not operating under that system. We're operating under a fake rule of law. The legal system that we're experiencing now is completely illegitimate, completely criminal.
It's not real law.
So yeah, blatant acts of betrayal against the people only to serve the few self-interested estates. Okay, so let's move on. So that's some points on the Bill of Rights that easily prove that it's anti-constitutional. What I've done now is I've kind of gone back to the 1297 because in our last video, we had a little bit of a discussion about that. And I've just made 5 points.
Coming soon from the studios of Sovereign Empowerment. You've seen him on many other channels like Nigel Howitt, The Lawful Rebel, Carl Liebold of the Voice of Freedom podcast, Richard Vobes from On Deck, Tamora Yuli, Dan Aston Gregory, and Neil Oliver. Sovereign Empowerment Productions is proud to introduce constitutional teacher and freedom advocate William Keat in a riveting and a bit controversial discussion, Natural Law and Psychosis, Society's Perilous Path. In this brilliant presentation, Gavin and Damien are joined by special guest William Keat in an eye-opening discussion that delves into the importance of natural law, personal responsibility, and self-governance in our society. Join us as William, founder of commonlawconstitution.org and lawandalchemy.org, shares his journey of awakening to the world's true nature and his research into government corruption.
It's the whole of society that's screwed up with it. They have to come to understand their own sovereignty. The distortion has come about in a way through a belief system, through a mindset, a kind of screwed up psychosis.
William Keat is a constitutional law expert and educator who advocates for the principles of common law and individual sovereignty. He focuses on educating people about their rights and the legal system's intricacies, aiming to empower individuals to reclaim their self-governance and hold the government accountable to the law.
So I started to shift outside that and started to look at secret and semi-secret societies that run in the background.
Together, Gavin, Damien and William explore how society's distorted mindset, described as a kind of psychosis, affects our ability to govern ourselves and maintain individual liberties. They discuss the dangers of collectivism, the flaws of democracy, and the erosion of morality and freedom. William emphasizes the need for intellectual rigor, authenticity, and honesty in decision-making.
That naturally took me into the proper, authentic rule of law. Well, how is that supposed to operate? Are there meant to be checks and balances placed on the governing system of the country?
Viewers will gain insight into the role of fear and discomfort in self-deception and learn about the ideologies of the Satanic Church, QAnon, and other controversial topics. This video is a must-watch for anyone interested in understanding the deeper issues affecting our society and the importance of taking personal responsibility.
That then led me to understand that what has actually happened is the most colossal distortion on what I perceive to be the most profound and important information for humanity.
Don't miss this eye-opening conversation that challenges the status quo and encourages critical thinking about our society's path.
It's less about the power of the people, but more about the fact that humanity needs to get itself straightened out. There are hints everywhere to the proper, authentic rule of law.
Due to the controversial nature of parts of this video presentation, there will be a limited version produced exclusively for YouTube. To view the full unedited version, search for Sovereign Empowerment on X, where freedom of speech, uncensored opinion, and free thought are the foundation of the platform.
The people really need to understand what free society looks like, how it's supposed to function.
And now back to our current presentation.
The Magna Carta 1297 is a statute, meaning it can be amended and repealed. Article 61, the security clause, was removed. A lot of people don't know, but Articles 10 and 11 outlaw usury. That was in the original Great Charter. That was a common law crime, to borrow money at the rate of interest.
Well, that's the financial system done, isn't it?
Right. That was removed from this 1297 version. And I don't know whether you've noticed, but Articles 39 and 40 are kind of mishmashed together. So
No, I didn't notice.
It's mistranslated as well.
Right.
So there's little where it's clever what they've done. Like, they've kind of used words to suggest that they had some sort of judicial authority to judge on people, which we already know under common law, the people were the judges. So yeah, it's just little wording that's kind of changed the outlook of a whole article.
Right.
So I suggest people go and read it. I mean, the fundamentals of trial by jury and all that stuff is worded in there, but it's still been altered, which is a breach. It's a breach of constitutional law. It's actually treason. You can't use statute to start tampering with already created constitutional law. You can't do it. You can't. Nobody has the authority to tamper with constitutional law to change it in any way. It would have to take like a convention of the whole nation to do something like that. Government can't just say, listen, I don't like Articles 10 and 11. You know, we're like, you know, we want to do these back alley deals with the banks and stuff like that, and, you know, allow the banks to have a monopoly on, you know, turning the people into slaves and all that kind of stuff. You can't do it. You know what I mean? It's just,
yeah,
it's criminal. These people should be in the dock. You know, done this. So I think I've already said this, but it tampers with legitimate constitutional law using statutory law, which can only be described as treasonous. So it's kind of like writing constitutional principles using statutory law and then starting to like repeal it or remove stuff or, alter it to benefit a few or to benefit yourself. Like removing Article 61 is only going to benefit one kind of people, like the government or the head of state.
Yeah.
Because they obviously can become corrupted and start doing criminal things and nobody can hold them account. The only thing you've got in the Bill of Rights is a petition or, well, what's that? It's not really a voice, is it? If nobody listens.
Exactly.
There isn't anything in there to suggest that you can annul legislation.
Mhm.
That you have any sort of say in what is passed and what isn't, or what society you want to live in. Because that would bring down the whole control system.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have that ability anymore. Because if you think about it, if you were working for the legislature, you were in that office, even if you wanted to try and pass shady legislation, if you're found out when that hits trial by jury, you're opening yourself up to treason. You're opening yourself up to going to court, to being tried for treason for certain things. If you've done something against the Constitution or you're trying to breach people's individual rights, the crime.
Yep.
So it kind of weeds out all those people who hold these offices who are easily corrupted or are just psychopaths themselves. So the Magna Carta 1297 is unconstitutional because it illegitimately altered the original Great Charter. So I've already spoke about that, but that's exactly what it did. It altered original constitutional law, and governments cannot use statute law to rewrite constitutional law. To me, that just makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Why would
it's
anyone
rational.
believe that they have legitimate authority to tamper with real constitutional law that protects people's individual rights using their own man-made law, statutory law, that they can write, repeal, amend, reword? It's just giving them the monopoly over what we can do and what we can't do, which is basically the Bill of Rights. Your rights are inherent. You're born with your rights. If you're not causing any harm and you're not frauding anybody, then you can do basically what you want. You can't write documents saying, you can do this, you can't do this. Who's got the authority to do that?
Yep, no one.
So governments have no authority to rewrite constitutional law using their own statutory capabilities to achieve a desired outcome. The actions of repealing statutes that may contain wording of common law does not remove underlying common law. That's a really important point. So, although some of these documents might contain wording of common law, if they start tampering with it or trying to repeal aspects of, let's say if it's the Magna Carta 1297, it doesn't repeal underlying common law. But common law just exists. It doesn't need to be written down. It's not written law. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Trial by jury is based on morality. It's based on consciousness. That's what they tried to do. They repealed certain clauses, thinking that common law has all of a sudden disappeared. No, it hasn't. It's still a crime. Them crimes of usury are still in place. This is the mind-blowing thing, and people don't take any notice of it. They just look at it as a document, and it doesn't mean anything.
And that's the point, is because it's like it was from a different time where you got this document where it's hard sometimes to even comprehend what the document is even saying or what it is. Trial by jury, as you said, it took you a while to get your head around it. Same with me. It's that thing that if you've got to study it, you've got to invest your own time to get your head around it. And the thing is, with most people, they won't do that.
No.
And they won't do that unless it's like literally on their doorstep.
For me, is why are we looking at the Bill of Rights then? Why do we use the Bill of Rights? It's still an ancient document, isn't it? It's still hundreds of years old.
I could probably answer that because I'm like, I'm one of those. I'm sitting here, and we do use it, in stuff that we do. Yeah, I'm here talking to you about this and treason and all the other good stuff. And I'm actually at a point now where I don't have a good answer for that anymore, because just how corrupt everything is. But equally because of what is playing out on the world stage and what the militaries are doing and all that stuff, we're coming to the end of this stuff anyway. I used the Bill of Rights. Admittedly, I didn't know any of this at the time. This is all kind of becoming a newer learning experience for me.
Yeah.
I used it just because it's a tool. It's just a tool to use to do what you need to do. Do you know what I mean? But in really, the reality is of that in the legal systems, it's not heard. There's so much corruption now that, for me, there are easier ways to solve the problems and get remedies than by standing on the Bill of Rights.
See,
And it does that very, very well.
Yeah.
And it's there, and it's proving that you can use it and with success. But I look at it now like there are easier ways to skin the cat, as it were.
See, I know people use it, and I don't. My personal opinion is that we shouldn't be using it. I mean, we've spoke about this. You know how I feel about that. But more importantly, it's about moral law. So
I agree.
If we're using the Bill of Rights, then we're operating in a knowingly criminal, illegitimate, bullshit system, then we are keeping that lie in place.
Mm-hmm.
We're not calling it out. So under moral law, we're not doing the right thing because we're not standing by truth.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And that's why, I think I wouldn't say 100% ready. I know certain things. I've read a lot of books. I've listened to some fantastic people, read some fantastic books. Keep harping on about people going to commonlawconstitution.org, which is William Keat, and he's just vast knowledge, wealth of knowledge. A lot of my information and my understanding of stuff has come from them sources. And Democracy Defined. If anyone hasn't read that book, it's probably the most important book I've ever read. One of them, 100%, because it goes into all this, and it's not that hard to understand either. It's quite clear. So yeah, that's another big point, because I'm slowly starting to get into natural law as well. I'm making that transition because that's what it's about. So that's where the whole, people might be a little bit confused when I start going on about moral law, which is basically just about morality. That's what all this is about, right and wrong behavior.
Yeah.
So really going back to operating in a knowingly criminal system, trying to find remedy. And it might be because people don't know, but when you do know, what you should be doing is stepping away from that and disassociating yourself with a treasonous system. And you should be standing under constitutional law. You should be standing under the rule of law. And I'm like what I was saying before, I wanted to gain knowledge first, because this is something I've not done, but I am going to take that oath of allegiance to self. I'm not necessarily going to do that oath of allegiance to the barons. I'm just saying that I'm not standing by this current system. I'm standing by constitutional law, moral law, trial by jury, the rule of law, the real rule of law, not the fake rule of law. And I'm going to start taking these notices and start getting the ball rolling, because I think I'm ready to do that. Because once you've got that knowledge, you can even do it as you're learning. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be sure about what Article 61 meant. When was it invoked? What did it mean? Why was it invoked? What was that? What was the petition? I read all that kind of stuff just to get a good idea of, if anybody tried to challenge me, what I start to get people trying to get money out of me is, I'm going to stand on that because it's truth. Because constitutional law is real, and we all should be doing it. We all have that moral obligation to be doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate.
So moving on to the Bill of Rights. Same problem. The Bill of Rights, 1689, is a statute, meaning it can be amended and repealed. You only have to look at Section 3 and other amendments here and there that have happened over time. It removed common law trial by jury, the only means to protect the people's liberties from a potentially criminal government. That is huge. We need to start taking notice of that. That whole common law trial by jury is what's going to protect us.
Yeah. That for me is everything. That's the big thing for me.
It is them three things: trial by jury, private prosecution, and annulment by jury that are massive. That's what is real remedy.
I agree.
It intervened with the head of state's binding duty and moral obligation to the people to refuse assent to any unlawful legislation. So it was a breach of constitutional law and individual rights. The Bill of Rights put wealth restrictions on who could serve as a juror. This duty was only open to freeholders, which were property owners, making it impossible for the commoner to qualify. So no equal justice there. The Bill of Rights, 1689, aimed to grant Parliament constitutional powers to establish themselves as a ruling class, and that's exactly what they've done. There's no two ways about it. I don't think
100%.
anyone can deny that. We can all start waving the Bill of Rights and suggesting that, it does this and does that. It doesn't do anything as far as I'm concerned.
Agreed.
So no government had the authority to write themselves into constitutional power. So another red flag. They're all red flags, completely anti-constitutional. The biggest breach, obviously, the diversion away from the real coronation oath, real trial by jury, real constitutional law, been diverted completely. And then what is remedy and what is going to protect us? The Great Charter is not statute law. It is customary law. Therefore, it cannot be amended or repealed by government-made law legislation. So it's permanent. It can never be statute law for the reasons already mentioned, that it's open to being repealed or amended by government. So how can you have constitutional law that can be amended or repealed by government?
Exactly.
Not constitutional, is it? Because they'll just decide what it is you can and can't do, what your rights are, what they can violate. It's ridiculous to think that people are actually looking at this. It's crazy. So it predates Parliament. So Parliament didn't play any part in its creation. That's not the main reason the Great Charter is what it is, but it's a valid point. It predates Parliament. So how can any future Parliament start tampering with it? It didn't have any, it didn't make it. It didn't have any goodness in it, So true nature of a constitution, that it is binding on governments and it is established by the people. All statute Parliament legislate must align with constitutional law. So the few pieces of legislation that may get passed, as long as it aligns with constitutional law, then that's fine. I'm not saying that office can't legislate, but it has to abide by constitutional law. It can't breach people's rights. There has to be checks on the legislation that's being written, that they're putting forward. And that testing pot is trial by jury. If it passes from lower house to upper house to royal assent to trial by jury being the final check. But really, if it is unlawful, it shouldn't even pass the upper house.
Yeah.
And it's permanent. That's another big thing. It's binding on government and it's permanent. The Constitution, Magna Carta 1215, sits above statute law. All statute legislation must align with constitutional law. So we've touched on that. Your constitution is top of the tree. Everything else, it's the same with the people at top of the tree. People are elevated to that position over governments. Government is just an administration. It was never there to be an authority or to enslave people or to try and control them. That wasn't its purpose. It is important to state that the common law principles set out in the Great Charter existed long before its creation. Common law trial by jury elevates the people above the government, which is not government, once you understand that trial by jury makes the juror the final arbiter of law. What more than that do you want?
That's it.
Ignore that. Why would we be looking at, something that we deem yeah, because it's a statute, people are going to listen in court. It's nonsense, isn't it? That whole system is criminal. So why not hold them accounts under constitutional law? You don't have to travel with them into that criminal system to get remedy. We should be just holding them account, saying we're not touching that system. We're not walking into them courts. We're holding you accounts under constitutional law, under Article 61.
The only way that works is numbers, though, isn't it? And that's the problem. It's all there. We don't have the numbers of people doing it, and that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, everything is, isn't it? Everything's numbers. You know,
But I do think there's a trigger event that will happen.
Well, the thing is, if people don't understand or don't take notice, then that tipping point will never happen, because people aren't interested in finding the truth, gaining the knowledge, doing the groundwork, getting the understanding. They just are like, you know, oh, how can I get out of this speeding ticket? How can I stop? Like I read the other day, I'm in a couple of groups. It wasn't any specific group that, you know, he was going on about, I haven't paid somebody rent and they're chasing me for it. And I'm like, well, if you haven't paid someone rent, then you haven't paid them rent.
You're in the wrong here.
You've breached something there. Come on. Start asking people for advice, how to, you basically accommodating criminal activity yourself, which is totally against what this group might stand for.
Yeah.
And this is what it's become, because what we do with man-made law, written law, we look for them loopholes. What can we use? Yeah, but you might be in the wrong yourself for your own actions. You have to take responsibility for how you act or what you do and face them consequences. It doesn't mean because you found the loophole that gives you the right to fucking do whatever you want to do. Just doesn't make sense.
It goes back to what you were saying about it. Really, it comes down to morality, right and wrong.
Well, this is it. That whole morality is bigger than this, what I'm discussing. This is just, for me, trying to trigger people to think a little bit outside of what they're doing. You know, even people that are just starting the journey, there isn't anything stopping them from looking at constitutional law, looking at the Magna Carta, looking at history, because it's all true. It's all happened. You know, the invocation of Article 61 in 2001.
It makes a lot of sense to me, but I think also because I've been talking to you for a long time now, I got my head around this. I understand. For me, it's all about tribal jury. And the argument becomes very, very simple.
I know, you know, people have got to make a living and do this and do that, but we've been talking for a while now, and I want to take this kind of stuff to the next level, and I want you to come with me.
Oh,
natural law and, you know, the Constitution. This is what's going to give us real freedom. This is what's going to be the tipping point. Whatever happening in the background is happening. We haven't got control of that, in the sense that we're not playing much of a part, but we can play a part in this. We can do something about this. We can share this information. We can go to different places in the country and speak to people. I'm trying to just do the right thing. I'm just trying to share truth. I'm not trying to rub anyone up the wrong way. I'm not trying to be personal with anyone. It's just about truth. It's about morality. I feel like, because I've been looking at natural law, when you know this stuff and you understand natural law as well, you have the moral obligation to be doing them kind of things.
I get exactly where you're coming from, mate.
You know what I mean?
It's almost like if you're invested in this to the extent you are, you can't not do it. You have to do it.
This message needs to get out there for people to be free. Do you know what I mean? And that whole morality thing is bigger than us.
Yeah.
You know, and
Completely agree.
The whole right and wrong behaviour and natural law and not understanding it is the causal factor why we are experiencing slavery now.
Absolutely.
And I know that's going to be hard for a lot of people to understand, but it's the truth. That people don't understand that the difference between right and wrong behaviour is why police assist bailiffs, why bailiffs are trespassing, breaching natural law.
completely get it.
Do you find the legal system overwhelming and wish you had the knowledge and skill sets to control judges, persuade attorneys, and win your case? Well, look no further. Sovereign Empowerment is proud to announce our partnership with Dr. Frederick Graves so that we can bring you the Jurisdictionary Law course, How to Win in Court, your ultimate resource for mastering the courtroom. Unlock powerful case-winning strategies as you learn to control judges like never before. This comprehensive course eliminates guesswork and empowers you to navigate the legal landscape with absolute confidence. With step-by-step instructions, flowcharts, and outlines, you'll have all the tools you need to persuade and control judges in any case or court. Learn from a seasoned attorney with over 40 years of winning experience, who has distilled his expertise into this comprehensive program. Access everything you need in one single package, including sample forms, video seminars, audio clips, and in-depth case-winning classes. Learn at your own pace, anytime, anywhere. Our 24/7 online access allows you to tailor your learning experience to fit your schedule. Access the course on your smartphone, tablet, or computer and become a legal master whenever and wherever you want. Benefit from a suite of powerful tools, including a free online legal research tool, a legal dictionary with common sense definitions, and an exclusive Q&A forum to connect with fellow students and obtain expert guidance. Good people have suffered too long at the hands of power because they just didn't know how to fight back. Now, in a matter of just a few days, you can acquire the tools and knowledge that takes law students years to achieve. Can't afford a lawyer? No problem. With the Jurisdictionary Law course, you'll gain the skills to win your case without expensive legal representation. Alternatively, equip your own legal consult with the tools and tactics to fight effectively on your behalf. Level the playing field and secure your victory. No matter what court, civil or criminal, conquer any courtroom challenge with ease. This step-by-step guidance ensures a quick and straightforward learning experience, empowering you to navigate the legal system with bulletproof confidence. As a testament to your newfound legal expertise, you'll have the opportunity to complete a final exam and receive an honorary law degree upon successful completion of the course. Showcase your achievement and establish yourself as a force to be reckoned with in the legal arena. Dr. Graves believes everyone deserves access to legal knowledge. That's why we offer the Jurisdictionary Law course at an unbeatable price. For less than the cost of a 1-hour legal consultation, you'll gain unlimited access to this complete program for up to 2 full years. Take control of your legal battles without breaking the bank. How to Win in Court has become the most trusted law course worldwide since 1997. Don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity to gain the upper hand in the courtroom. Enroll in the official Jurisdictionary Law course today and unleash your legal power. Click the link in the description below to become legally empowered today.